Hi there everyone. I am really excited to be able to bring you this interview. I had the opportunity to sit down with DJI's Creative Director for Europe and professional FPV pilot Ferdinand Wolf and get his thoughts on the new O3A unit. Now, Ferdy has been deeply involved not only in the development of the O3 system, but in all of DJI's FPV systems, all the way back to the original A unit. So he has a unique perspective on what DJI's technology brings to this space. Thank you to everyone on my Discord server who contributed questions. I did my best to ask all of them. If there were any that I missed out or any new questions that spring to mind, make sure to leave them down in the comments and I'll answer them if I know the answer. And if I don't know the answer, but I think the question is really important and relevant, I will reach out to DJI and try and get an answer from them. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into the interview. Thank you so much, Ferdy, for joining me on this call. I think it's fantastic that we're able to have this opportunity to chat and to hear what a representative of DJI thinks of the new O3 system, the launch, and everything that DJI has been doing in the FPV space for so long. Before we jump into the questions, and I've got lots of questions, I just want to give you an opportunity to give us an introduction to yourself, your background, and your relationship to DJI.
So yeah, thanks for having me, Chris. I'm excited to answer your questions, and yeah, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of questions since this product just has been released, and I think for the FPV world, it's a pretty cool product that also will change a lot how we do our hobby, or for some it's even a job or became a job, flying FPV. So I'm the creative director for DJI Europe, and I'm also heavily involved in the product development phase and in the product testing. And I'm also collecting a lot of customer feedback, trying to feed that back to our developers. With the company for, yeah, it's about 7 years now, so quite a long time.
All right, fantastic. And I take it if you've been with the company for so long, were you also aware of or involved in the original DJI FPV system as well?
Yes, actually was one of the first beta testers back then. And I guess I was the first one that took the original air unit back to Europe and was testing it in Europe on a day-to-day basis, basically. And since I also fly high professional jobs for like TV shows, commercials, and cinema, I use the FPV, the original FPV air unit a lot. So very extensive, have a lot of experience with it in basically every environment.
Fantastic. So in your own words then, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you think that DJI is bringing to FPV with these systems? Maybe start with your thoughts on the original DJI FPV unit. Maybe start with your thoughts on the original DJI FPV system, and then tell us a bit about how that's been brought on with O3.
Sure. So I think, and I mean, it's pretty obvious that the original DJI FPV system was quite a game changer for the whole FPV industry. Before we, like most of us, just flew analog, and we all know how analog looks like and feels like. And just the question, like a lot of people were watching those FPV videos recorded on action cams and were like, hey, that looks so great, and how's the experience looking through the goggles? And a lot of people were quite disappointed when they saw which feet we actually use as a pilot to fly the drone. And in the hobby sector, I mean, it's one thing, but if you use FPV professionally, it's quite substantial that you have a good FPV feed where you see details like branches and little objects. So I think the DJI FPV system was a revolution to get that much more detail, to have the higher resolution, the higher image quality, a decent onboard recording, and just a whole set of new features that helped hobbyists as well as professionals using FPV. And if we look at the conversion rate and how many people now use the DJI system, I guess it speaks for itself. I don't know any professional out there that doesn't use it, and most people that use it as do it as a hobby have converted as well, because it's just so much more fun to use the digital system.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I hear numbers thrown around, but I hear that it's something like 50% of pilots are using the DJI FPV system on some of their quads. If not all of their quads, then some of their quads. So yeah, that's a huge uptake in that system over the last few years. So tell me, when did you first hear about O3? How did that happen?
Well, as I said, I'm involved in the development phase of products as well. So I was on the early involved on the development of the Avatar drone as well. So which uses the new O3 technology that the new product is based on, basically. So I was quite excited about the Avatar, but when I heard that there will be a standalone product, basically an Air Unit 2, as you will so, based on the same technology, I mean, that really drew my attention. And I was like, okay, when can I get one? I want to use that, you know. It's great to have it on Avatar, you know. It's an amazing product. I love it. But I was even more excited about getting, you know, the standalone version of it. So yeah, I was quite early involved in the development, and I was got the first test units earlier this year, and since then basically fly it on a day-to-day basis as well, to really test it thoroughly, to give a lot of feedback, and yeah, make it market ready basically. So that's work close together with the developers, and yeah, give them the feedback.
So for you as a pilot, what are the new features in O3 that you are particularly excited about, that you were really involved in developing and bringing to the system?
Yeah, so I think the new O3 Air Unit brings quite a lot of features to the table. I think when people just first look at it, they think like, okay, it's just an upgraded Air Unit, you know, with like maybe better video transmission. But if you look closely, it has a lot more there, and that there's like a couple of things that I started to realize once I heard all of the about the new features, and I was in the process testing it. And I mean, you can pretty sure you read the spreadsheets, and I mean, there's a lot of reviews from all the guys out there. But it can tell you like my personal favorites and what I think really is like the next evolution for FPV. So first of all, I think the upgraded sensor and optics are just like a big improvement, because if you compare the original lens design and sensor size to this, you will see that there is a tremendous update in this. So basically what you have here, this is you know, technology you normally have in high-end action cams, like the Osmo Action 3 and stuff like that. So this is exciting, you know. And as I said, if you compare the old cameras with the new one, you can just instantly see how bigger the optics, how improved the optics are, which also results in way better lens flaring, by the way, which is always important for, you know, people that look at the image quality. It's not only the image quality, but it's also the lens optics, and that's hugely upgraded. I really like the lens flaring. But also the larger sensor just gives us a better image quality in low light, packs in more resolution.
Yeah, I've certainly noticed, done some side-by-side comparisons of the new system versus the original DJI system. And even at the same resolution and the same frame rate, it's really noticeable that the O3 system is able to capture just a little bit more detail. And that I think is down to the quality of the sensor that's in the system, the size of the sensor, and the optics as well. As you say, you've got a much bigger lens package overall in the O3.
Correct. And also it's because of the upgraded video codec that we're using, better compression algorithms. So that's another huge upgrade, which also results in way more details that you see while flying, but also, of course, if you record on board, which is a whole different game. So when I first heard about the O3 Air unit, and then I basically realized that this is pretty much the same you have in the Avata. So you can internally record 4K with the option to have like a D-Log flat image profile that you can color correct, that you have 2.7K with 100 frames. That was just mind-blowing for me, because I was like, oh wow, so I don't need the action camera on top anymore, right? And we all know how a quad behaves if you put more weight on it. And I tested with and without the action camera, and I was like, okay, without the action camera I get way more flight time. The handling is just, you get even more power if you use it on a 5-inch. It's just insane the amount of power you have. You get more flight time, obviously, as you don't have that additional weight. And also, I mean, it makes the whole quad less expensive. So if you should crash it, you don't lose your whole thing, right? So that's something where I was really excited. Also, the fact that you can use ND filters on it. And then another cool thing, what I really love, is that you can remotely basically configure the whole camera, because that's something you cannot do with an action cam. Once you're airborne and you fly, well, you basically hit the record button and then you're gone. Yeah. So either you switch to auto exposure or you set it manually, but that's basically, yeah, then you're gone until you land again and stop the camera. So you record one big chunk of a file. You have no control while you're airborne about the exposure settings. And that's just fantastic here, that you basically can use your goggles, and you have a full camera menu on those goggles. So you can change exposure, you can switch white balance, you can start stop, so you don't have like one big chunky file. And that's a fact that I haven't seen in so many reviews so far, which personally for me is a game changer. Because this fire and forget thing that you have to do on an action camera, you don't have that anymore on that. And I think that's one of the key points that DJI brought already, like in the early days when switching, on the early Phantoms, we attached action cams, and then we switched over to having integrated cams. And the big advantage of that was that you have full control remotely over the camera, start, stop, exposure, all that stuff, And now if you look like Inspires or Mavics and stuff like that, we just take it for granted that you with a flick of a button or like touch on the screen, you can just change your settings, record, start, stop. But that's something in FPVs, we did not have it. Like even on the heavy lift FPV, on the sim lift FPV drones, you basically fire and forget, and you don't have any control unless you put some, expensive extra gear on it. So that's something I really love. And then another thing that I personally absolutely love is the fact that there is an integrated IMU gyro in the camera itself. So not only here, which makes it possible to apply rock steady image stabilization on the fly while you're flying and recording. But not only that, it's also compatible with the open source software GyroFlow, which a lot of people nowadays use because it's absolutely amazing. And I know the developers as well. And it's to be honest, I have a huge respect for the developers that put this together basically in their free time and developed a solution that basically is
industry standard now.
It's on par with the solutions you have to pay for, and I think sooner or later it becomes the industry standard, because they also offer plugins for software like DaVinci Resolve, which is amazing. So I was super happy to learn that the DJI developers actually worked together with the GyroFlow developers to make this compatible, make this all happen. So that's another big plus for me. And as soon as it was ready, so I was one of the first guys that were able to test it. Like once I got the first GyroFlow version and the first, firmware that basically both worked together. I was just going out and testing and testing and testing, and had so much fun stabilizing, post-stabilizing the footage. Because honestly, in-camera stabilization is great, but it will never keep up with the power you have on your PC, and you know, it knows the whole flight. You have unlimited resources in terms of processing power and memory, because you know it can take as long as it wants for stabilization. So this is always great. And you can even output in higher profile codecs like ProRes. I mean, how cool is that? You film something in that, and then you stabilize it with GyroFlow, and you have the full, you know, list of codecs that you can use for exporting. I think that is really amazing, and one of the biggest key features of this product. And that's all, you know, included when you buy this. You know, and that's something you cannot do with many action cams. So that's pretty cool.
I think this is one of the things that I always look at DJI and I say this is something that DJI does really well. Is you take professional capability and you package it and you scale it down and you bring it to like a really wide consumer base. Like you're taking stuff that normally only professionals would think of to do and would be able to do, and you're making it available to just a much wider range of people. You know, even getting it down to well below the price point of a GoPro or something like that.
Correct. Yeah, we'll make it accessible in both terms. Like technically, it's easy to handle it, to use it, compared to if you know, put together all those standalone things, and you know, and then if you look at the price point, it is, I mean, I think it's a pretty interesting and attractive price point if you compare it to a solution where you would put like a HD video transmission system with an additional action cam at a high level. And it's just way more convenient just to put this in. And as I said, flight performance, flight time is enhanced. You have the full control over recording, so that's great. You have the stabilization. So those are all cool things that I love. And I mean, we didn't even talk about the improvements in video transmission quality, image quality, and all the other features that you have there. So that's just the recording part, right?
So yeah, let's come on and talk a little bit about the upgrades in terms of the radio side, because I think they're going to be more difficult, I guess, to kind of immediately see. But I understand that there have been quite a lot of changes under the hood to the radio link. So do you want to talk a bit about what's gone on there?
Yeah. So first of all, I think what you immediately will see, and I mean, all the people that I showed the product before launch were just, that's something you easily see. The image quality is so much better. You have way less compression and artifacts. It's rock solid. You see way more details. So I have a prime example for that. When as I told you, when I took the first air unit back to Germany back then, and I was flying around in the DJI offices, and we had some nice open area where we tested that. I was very amazed by it, and then I took it back to Germany and went out for the first time. And I went to a place nearby my home, which is kind of a forest with with grass. And then I flew there, and I was like, oh my God, that doesn't look that great anymore. Because what happened, and I was asking the developers, okay, why doesn't it look that great here anymore? And then I realized, well, it was due to the fact there's just so many details flying over grass with a lot of leaves, and then the trees had leaves, and everything was super detailed, and it was very hard for the codec to deal with it, and for the whole image pipeline. And now going back to the exact same location with this, it's just a totally different game. You see everything clearly. There's no blotches. There's no big artifact blocks. You basically can count the leaves of the grass and the leaves of the trees. So this is a huge step forward in terms of detail and image quality. That is due to the new O3 technology we have in there, and the transmission technology. even on the same bit rates, the image will be much crisper, much more detailed. But not only that, you will have better range and penetration, which is like ultimately one of the most important things for FPV pilots. You don't want to, struggle
absolutely.
with your feet dropping out, because that most of the time leads to a crash. So you can fly more confidently, which is even more important for professional users. So that is heavily, the range is increased, the penetration, the signal penetration is increased. And then what I also noticed is that if you have, if you fly behind things or the image transmission gets weaker, and the system, has a variable bit rate, so it as the original system already had, so it switches down according to the signal strength and the quality, the link quality. So with the old system, if that stepped down to bit rates like 3 Mbits or something, it was very difficult. Basically you only had big pixel blocks. So with this, I was surprised how well you still can fly with like 3 megabits. I mean, it's you see that there's a degradation, but you still can fly and get your quad back without the need of fail-safing, because you're not sure if you will hit something. So that's something where I was very surprised that even at the lower bitrate levels, the image quality is still usable and flyable, which is just such an improvement in terms of safety as well.
And I think that comes down to that H.265 encoding, right? I mean,
absolutely. Yep.
My understanding is that with H.265, you get about the same image quality at half the bit rate compared to H.264, or you get twice the image quality at the same bit rate. So
absolutely right.
You're really seeing that.
You either basically double the image quality with the same bit rate, or you have half the bit rate and get the same image quality as before. And I mean, that's a huge improvement. If you now look at, if you fly at a 50 Mbit link, the picture quality, the image quality you get is insane. It is a huge step forward. And as I said, every time I go out with people that are still on the other system, and they take the goggles and fly with that, they're just blown away. It just looks amazing. I mean, as on the Avada, it's the same system, and that already looks great. But having this technology on your custom built quad, that's what makes me
the extra level, right? Yeah,
exactly. Because I have all kind of squads from like 2.5 inch up to like the big ones that carry the Komodos and Sony FX6, the big cameras, and even, especially on those rigs, it's so important that you can fly with confidence, right? Because you're carrying like a $10,000 camera with a $5,000 lens through the air, and if you have to fail safe there, it's not just going there and picking up your quad and just rebending the prop or switching
that's a difficult conversation to have with the insurance company at that point.
It's no chance. Yeah. If you have to do the walk of shame there, it will be bad. So so this is really helping it in both departments, for the hobbyists and for the professionals. And
it's
then
really interesting as well to just jump back to something you said before, that when you first started to fly the system, the image quality wasn't so good, and it's through kind of firmware improvements and software updates that the encoder has been able to be tuned to achieve the image quality that it now manages. I think that's really interesting, because we've seen with other digital systems in the market the same challenges, really, of trying to improve the encoding. And so I think we can really see with this O3 system the hours of time, of your time and also of the developer's time, that has gone into getting it as good as it's able to be now.
The problem with the image quality, that was on the old system, on the first one. That was where it was, but with this one, it basically from the start was the details were just there, because so the issues I had were with the first system when I took it back, because it was just made too many details. And that's something where you can really challenge those systems. Go to a place where you have a lot of details, and then you can really tell apart. If you fly over like a meadow and grass, the other systems, you will just have like one. It will just mush everything down. You don't see any details anymore. But using this, you basically see pretty much every leaf of grass, which that blew me away. And that's the amazing thing on, as you said, using the new transmission technology, using the new encoding, using all the new hardware we have inside, because all that stuff requires a lot of processing power. I mean, this is some serious stuff what's happening inside here. And I mean, there is a reason why things get warm and hot while you're using them. That there's just a lot of things going on, because you have to imagine we're transcoding things and encoding a video live feed in basically real time with very low latency. We're talking about 28 to 30 milliseconds latency here. Then it has to be transcoded and sent and everything. And there's a lot of things happening there.
And actually, I think it's okay to say this. Mads Tech, Ian, has done a teardown of the O3A unit. And his comment was that he's just really impressed with the amount of stuff that's crammed into that little black box. The amount of really high-end silicon that's in there, and how everything has been compactified to the maximum extent to squeeze it all in. And it's much more dense than the Calyx Vista, much more dense than the original Air unit. There's a lot more silicon in that package than anything we've seen before.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, if you look at the form factor of this now, it's very similar to a Vista unit, right? But the Vista couldn't even record internal 1080p, right? So this is, I think it's quite an achievement to get everything in that small package, and get it durable. I mean, this is a product that I never had a failure on this, and I can tell you I push those things quite hard.
I bet. I wanted to ask you a little bit about range, because I imagine that you're someone who's probably going to know the most about the sort of the range of the system. When you're using it on big quads, do you use aftermarket antennas or different antennas than the one that's provided with the system? And what would your recommendation be on that?
So on the bigger ones, like on a Cinelifter, how we call it, this antenna is difficult to mount, because those rigs are very large. Then you often use X8 configuration, where you have props up and on the upper side and the bottom, and then everything is bigger and larger. I mean, this is great for 5-inch, where you can just have the antenna come out in the back or somewhere. But on the big ones, I use just an extension cable. So you can dismount this antenna. It's this it's called FDL or something like that, the UFDL connector. So
UFL. So you use like a UFL SMA.
Exactly. So it's the UFL connector. So it's common off the shelf. You can buy a pigtail cables, basically the same that you would use in Wi-Fi routers. And then you can convert it to like SMA connectors, and then you basically can mount your standard antennas that you were basically using on the original Air as well. So and I mean, there's quite a selection of antennas. This antenna is amazing, and if you have the chance, because it basically combines 2 antennas in one. And I already shared. I don't know if Mads Tech took it apart. I took it apart. It's quite amazing to see how they did it inside. But as I said, on like the Cinelifter FPV drones, it is hard to mount. But if you can mount this antenna, if you have a way to mount it, I would always recommend to stick to this. But as I said, you might not be able to on some quad layouts, and then you can just get those pigtails and mount your other antennas. I think that's.
And so you use the same antennas that you use for the original DJI FPV system. So does that mean that you don't use if you do that, does that mean that you don't use the 2.4 gigahertz control link that's built into the Air unit? Do you use another system?
That's correct. So if you use that, you have to be aware that your 2.4 won't be. I mean, unless you get an antenna that does both frequencies, which is also possible. And I'm quite sure that we will see some aftermarket accessories where they will come up with solutions so you can also do that. And I think the original controller, like the DJI FPV controller 2 that came with the original DJI FPV is great for like 5-inch quads or like smaller quads, because it's just so compact. And I personally like how it feels and handles in the hand. But for the bigger ones, like for the heavy lifter, for the cine lifter stuff, I use an external remote link like ExpressLS, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that would be what all professionals would recommend. You know, just because for a cine lifter you just need the absolute best in terms of controlling range and penetration. And so a dedicated system is the way to do that. But I've been flying my 5-inch with the just using the O3 system and the DJI controller, and that's been really good. So
the range is great. It's great, and what I really like is that you even have like a dedicated record button, so that's perfect. So if you just want to fly for fun, I think that's the perfect solution. It even reduces installation, because I mean, we all know if you have, I mean, an additional receiver, it doesn't take up much space, but you have an additional antenna you have to put there. You have to feed, you have to solder wires, you have to do firmware upgrades, you have to configure it in Betaflight. So having the all-integrated approach by DJI, I think that's like very convenient, and for most users, it's a perfect solution that don't want to hassle around with a third-party radio and stuff. But for the FPV cine lifter things, I think the other radios are a good option. Sure.
Yeah, and I mean, there will always be some pilots who are already invested in a particular control link, and they can just use that control link with the system, no problem.
Exactly, and I mean, DJI is, and we can have it both ways. So DJI is open to have people use their own systems or use the DJI system. So both options are there. So the user can pick whatever he prefers.
Cool. I wanted to ask a bit about the goggles now. So the system is compatible with 2 different goggles, the V2 goggles and the new goggles 2. Not the easiest product naming for us. DJI FPV goggles V2 and the DJI goggles V2. So have you tried both goggles with the system?
Yeah.
Which do you prefer? I imagine that the goggles V2 gets a slightly lower latency, but then the goggles 2 has the OLED screens.
I prefer the new ones, to be honest, because I don't think those 2 milliseconds are that noticeable. But all the upgrades we have on this, I think are worthwhile having those. So I think the OLED screens just look amazing. Just feel that there's more contrast, more saturation. It's hard to tell, but everything looks more vivid. So that's something I absolutely love. And I love the built-in, diopter control. That's all like really
very useful.
You can change it on the fly. And if I go out with people that have glasses, they're always struggling. Hey, can I use the glass on the? So this is quite easy and cool to use. I love for me personally, one of the biggest improvements is the new form factor, because basically this is half of the size than the old ones. You can easily fold the antennas to make it even more compact, so you don't have issues with broken antennas, or you don't have to screw them out and in every time. So I think DJI really listened to the customer and improved in a lot of areas here. And I also like the touchpad. At the beginning, I was like, that's a good idea to put it. But now, if you get used to it, it's kind of cool. You just click and swipe through your menu. That's quite nice. But as I said, the biggest advantage to me is the form factor and the OLED screens. And then the higher resolution is cool. But I think the OLED screens and size already sell it for me.
So I've heard from a few people that the new DJI goggles 2 are going to be made compatible with the existing Air Unit and Vista. Do you have any information on that?
Yeah. So we listened to the customer feedback, and a lot of people were asking for that, and personally me as well, because I mean, yes, I have a couple of those, of course,
Mm-hmm.
but I still have so many quads and FPV drones. I won't be able to switch all of them. And if I go out, I prefer to just carry one goggle with me. And
Yeah.
as I just mentioned, that would be this one. So yes, people were asking for that. I was asking for that as well. So we're working on it. I mean, it takes quite some development effort, some coding, but this will come out later this year. We're working on it. Yeah.
Have you had a chance to test it yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. So we can't ask you how the Caddx Vista looks with the new goggles, because I would be really interested to know how much of a difference the screens will make.
Unfortunately not. No, I hadn't have the chance to look at it now.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll have to catch up with you on that later.
Yeah, let me
know.
Let me see how the progress is.
Fantastic. So a couple of more technical questions now. Do you know if there's a hard range limit on the system? I know that DJI capped out at about 13 kilometers, something like that. Is that going to be similar with O3 as far as you're aware?
To be honest, I don't know. I never tested it. It's I would say it's not illegal to fly that far. So I personally never did it. And to be honest, I personally also, you can do it. There's some people that basically take this to the extreme, and that's their kind of hobby to push it as far as possible. But I think for most people that are using the product, the range we have is already good enough. And as you know, there's legal restrictions that you should adhere to. So no, I haven't pushed it that far, and I wouldn't.
We'll have to wait for someone to put it on a wing.
Exactly.
See how far it will go.
The other thing, I think there's no way that you'd build a quad that flies that much.
No way.
Yeah,
there's no way you go 13 kilometers.
You always have to remember you have to return as well.
Yeah, you've got to go 26 because you've got to come back. Yeah, I think you're only gonna be able to do that on a wing, I think.
Correct. You have to double it. Yeah. So yeah, quite risky. I would.
Cool. So I wanted to ask about third-party cameras for the system. So I know that RunCam are now making cameras for the DJI V1 system, right, and are starting to sell the Caddx Vista, or what was called the Caddx Vista, as the RunCam Link. I think everyone knows that's known in DJI as the Air Unit Lite, so that's a DJI product. Do you have any information on any partnerships with camera manufacturers, or are there going to be other cameras for the system in the future?
Unfortunately, I cannot share any information at the moment, so
that's fair enough. Yeah.
Sorry for that.
That's okay. Do you know if you can run the system without the case around it to save weight?
Well, I know all those modifications that people did to the Vistas, especially.
Yeah.
I never tried it, and I'm not sure how much weight you would save and gain. Pretty sure there will be people doing it, but personally haven't done it yet. And as I said, those systems get quite hot because of all the processing power and things that are going on inside. So I personally wouldn't recommend it, but I'm curious to see what people come up with. And so no, I personally don't know, and definitely we officially don't recommend doing such.
No, of course not. I can talk about my personal experience with naked vistas in the past. Has been that they overheat really fast on the bench. Right. But actually my experience has been that in flight they stay a little cooler.
Right.
It's always, you have to take off. You have to go. Like the moment you power on, you've got to go.
Yeah. And I mean that's mostly I use those components on professional jobs. And even there, I try to switch on and plug in the quad last minute to keep the temperature down. And sometimes I even turn on the motors to have some airflow to cool down, especially in a hot summer. So I just leave the props running on ground to cool it down a bit. And then if I see, okay, they still need some time to set up the hero car, whatever, I just unplug and just wait until they're done. to just keep the components as cool as possible. It's just, there's those chips just get hot. That's in the nature of things. So any decasing or tinkering with it, it's at your own risk,
Yeah, of course. I have heard from a few people who've tested it, and I'm going to be doing some testing myself, that the release firmware for O3 is significantly better from a heating perspective than the pre-release firmware. So I think, it's clear that DJI are listening to people about this and doing what's possible.
That's absolutely right. Yeah. So that was one of the major milestones in the firmware development as well, to keep the temperature down as much as possible, because it is, as you can imagine, there's a lot of smart engineers working on that, trying to make it as good as possible, and that just they listened, as you just said, also to the beta testers, and yeah, improved that as well. So that's great. Yeah,
that's great. I noticed that on the O3 system, there's no power selection in the system. So do you know how the power is controlled? And if we want to adjust the power, is that a feature that is possible to have in the future?
So you're right. That's currently the case. We're listening to the user's voice, the customer's voice, and if there should be a demand, we will look into it. If maybe we can integrate an option as well where you could reduce the power and stuff like that. So we're always listening to the customers and see what they're saying. There's a lot of reasons why, the good thing, I mean, that you have to remember, that's something on the original FPV system, there was no option for auto channel select. So
auto power. It was like one channel, one power. That's exactly it.
So and even like, especially on sets where you have a lot of different RF, you have other video transmission systems, you have cameras and Wi-Fi's and all that stuff. So it was basically always like you had to like select the channel and like hope for the best, right? And there was no intelligence inside. And as I said, we were flying expensive cameras and gear, or still are. So to me personally, it took some while to get used to it, but now, as I used it for quite some while, I just rely on the automatic channel selection because it just helps the user. Like, let's be honest, you have enough things to do. You don't want to think about that as well, right? So if the system, and then the HD transmission system, this one also does it, with the that recently came out. It has a very good auto selection algorithms as well. If those products can help the user by just selecting that by themselves, and here's the thing, they can also change anytime. Once they see, okay, there's a channel that is getting more occupied, or there's a lot of interference, they will automatically also change and switch the channel. But that will be transparent to the user. So this wouldn't even be possible on the old system. You're in the air, you're flying, and then whatever, somebody switches on something close to you exactly at frequency, you would be,
that's it.
Problem, right? So with the new systems, they will detect that and they will automatically switch channels on the fly without even you don't know. You just fly there and you're having the best time of your life, right? So I think that's a really positive thing, because nobody really wants to tinker with that. It's more like,
and I think the original DJI system, already had that function where you just change the channel on the goggles, and then it changed on the air unit automatically, which was already a big step forward from having to do it on two devices.
Right.
And now it's like, well, you just power on and it's fine.
Yeah. But you still have the option to manually select channels. There's still there. And as I said, with the output power, we're listening to the customer's voice, and let's see what's happening there in the future.
Yeah, and I imagine, like with the auto channel select, the auto power, does it change the power depending on the signal strength and things like that?
That's correct. So you don't have the exact same power on it. differs. And there's also, there's a lot of rules and regulation when it comes to radio frequency. And there's also regulations that basically allow higher output powers if you have automatic channel monitoring processes integrated with the product. So if you have only manual channel selections, you're obliged by some regulations to lower your output power. So this is very detailed, and it depends on the regions as well. So let's don't get into much details. But as I said, sometimes in regions you're able to output more if you're on an automatic channel and frequency selection process, and the product is able to change frequencies and to look for interference. Then you're able to use higher output power.
That's actually that's a huge thing that I wasn't aware of, and I think
just to give you some background, because some people think manual channel selection is the best thing you can do, and it will always be the best because I know what I'm doing manual. Like on photography, where there's people that always put their camera in manual and think that's the professionals only use manual mode on a DSLR, and it's like, no, there's actually quite a lot of reasons to switch to the AV or TV setting. It helps a lot. And I was a professional photographer for over 10 years, and I used those half automatic modes a lot because they just help you, they assist you. I think very similar to this. Manual is great if you know what you're doing, but it's like on the cars. The modern automatic transmissions, they're now better than manual stick gearboxes.
And if it allows you to have a higher output power in certain regions at certain times, but by having that intelligence in there, then that is going to make up the difference, right?
Correct.
I wanted to ask then, do you happen to know what the maximum output power of the system is under ideal circumstances?
Actually, I don't. That's something I don't even know. So sorry for that.
No, it's okay. I guess that's something that we might find out. With some testing in future. But I'm imagining it's going to be.
I'm pretty sure MatsTag will tell us soon.
He'll tell us, yeah. I imagine it's going to be pretty similar to the original system. Because I know from the teardown that Ian did that the RF front end is very similar. So like the same power amplifiers and stuff are being used. So it's performance probably similar. All right. So another short question. As far as you're aware, are there plans to bring the canvas mode that's available on O3 to the previous generation, the DJI V1 system?
As far as I know, there is no plans to convert that. So
it is available. It is available through other means if people want it, I guess.
Yes, exactly.
Perfect. All right. So I wanted to ask a little bit about support for the current system. So as far as you're aware, are V1 Air units and Vistas and the original DJI camera, which I really like, are they still going to be active products going forward, even alongside O3 as a sort of lower cost alternative?
Yeah, so we will look at the customer demand, and if there's demand, and that basically will decide how long that will be supported. Yeah,
makes perfect sense. And certainly the work to make the old systems compatible with the new goggles is going to give people that opportunity to run both systems in parallel going forward for a while anyway.
Correct.
Yeah, perfect. So I think that is yes. So one last question about the video side of things. A lot of pilots are asking about a fixed latency mode or a lower resolution mode with even lower latency than the current system. Do you have any comments or thoughts on that from your perspective?
Well, this is basically comes down to the fundamental core architecture of the system. So the DJI system, I mean, that goes for the original one and also for the new one. Basically, the technology is based on a variable bit rate and also a variable latency, because we use a system with retransmissions. And to us, the benefits you have from that technology or from the system approach, they outweigh the cons, right?
Yeah.
You have way better range, you have improved image quality. If you would use a fixed latency, this would definitely limit range and image quality. So from our side, we thought that most users would be okay with slightly varying latency, especially in the freestyle and hobbyist, sector. I think most people are okay to take that slightly variable latency and get the tremendous improvement in image quality and range. So that's basically a fundamental decision you have to make when you design the system. So that's the approach we choose, and I think that's the perfectly right approach for such a system at the moment. And if people really need this fixed latency, I mean, there's other alternatives and options that they can go with. But I feel
they have a totally different core architecture.
It's a different direction. So from my side, this system is the right for me for the work I do. If you fly professionally with those FPV cinelifters, you rather see the tree plant, you rather have good range, good penetration, a solid signal, and it's okay if there's some latency, variable latency. But I totally understand why there's some certain areas where you have to have a fixed latency. But yeah, as I said, it comes down to the system design. I think this approach, provides in general for the most customers, it provides the better experience.
Yeah, so I think I agree with your points there, that there are going to be some applications, particularly racing, where the fixed latency is really important because it's very muscle memory focused.
Exactly.
But typically when I've flown the V1 system and flying the new system as well, if you do notice variable latency, it's in situations where you're just happy you've got a picture.
Right. Correct. Yeah.
And you're not thinking about latency. You're thinking about, oh God, I'm clearly penetrating through a lot of material here, and I need to get out without crashing.
Correct. Yeah, I'm happy that I still can fly and see something.
Yes.
The use of a fixed latency then when you cannot see anything anymore.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
It's already crushed. Yeah. But as you said, for like the hardcore races that need to take every turn and on every lap the exact same way, I totally understand this. But for I think most of the users, they are okay with it just have to as I said, you have to. There's pros and cons, but I think the pros on that system approach they outweigh the cons for most users by far.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, particularly for the work that you do as well.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask a little bit about future developments for the O3 system, because when we had the original DJI V1 system, obviously it started with the air unit, which came with onboard recording and diversity antennas. And then after that, we had the Vista unit, the A unit Lite, which stripped out the onboard recording and went with a single antenna. Any thoughts on whether we might expect a future product that's like an O3 Air Unit Lite, along the lines of what the Vista was to the original Air Unit?
Yeah, so actually a lot of people are asking that, and I see that there's a high demand for that. And basically same answer that I already had to give you on a couple of other questions. So we'll listen to the customer's feedback, we'll listen to the customer's demand, and then decide which product to release next, and what to do with this ecosystem. I mean, because that's the cool thing. We're talking about an ecosystem here, So the more and more products work together with each other. You can use different configurations, and I'm pretty sure this won't be the last product in that ecosystem. So yeah, let's see what the future brings. But we listen to the customer's voice. So if people would like that, let us know. And yeah.
Perfect. Similar question, maybe the same answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. A lot of other digital systems have started to bring out 1S VTXs for tiny whoops and for micro quads. Is that something that the O3 system or the O3 ecosystem could perhaps support in future?
Unfortunately, same question. But you have to. No, the development of something like that is quite complex and difficult. So I think I think it's already great that we have this new technology now, and let's see how well it goes, how the users like it, and everything. And then if there's huge demands, we'll definitely look into that and see. And I mean, it's also, to be honest, it's also great that we have now a couple of other systems out there that it's great to see that we're not the only ones anymore.
Yeah.
At least from my side, and then it's cool to see in which directions they go. And to be honest, I think they also go in slightly different directions as well, which I like. So I think it's, for the customer, it's great to have so many options nowadays. I mean, look back 4 years.
There was analog and then DJI, right? That was it.
Exactly. So it's exciting times, and I mean, the hobby is becoming more and more popular. It's crazy to see how many people are getting into FPV. So yeah, I think it's exciting, and
it's a great time. And I think part of that is being driven by the adoption of FPV shots in TV and movies, and I'm sure that you're way more plugged into this than I am, but just all of that is starting to become more visible to people.
Yeah, there's more TV shows, commercials, and even feature films coming with those FPV shots. It's great to see that even like the movie industry adopt this, because it's just a new way of storytelling. It's basically another tool in the director's toolkit, which is great. So we have the classic drones flying along side by side with the FPV drones. This is just amazing, and it's great to see. Yeah. So
and capturing these like super dynamic shots that you just can't get any other way. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Can't wait to see what happens in the future in the world of drones. It never stops. That's super interesting.
Absolutely, it never stops. So obviously the O3 system offers a load of different camera modes and onboard recording settings, much more than any other FPV system. So do you want to talk us through the different onboard recording modes, which ones you like, which ones you use most, and where you see each of them fitting into what a user might want to do?
Yeah, sure. So the great thing is, I mean, we talked about this already, is that you have, first of all, you have the option to shoot like in a normal color profile, or also in like a largish profile. So you have more ways to handle the footage in post-processing, which is always great, to match different cameras, to put your own creative look onto it, which I absolutely love. Then you have different FOVs, so you have like an ultra super wide view where it's just like super immersive, which is great. Then you have a wide one, and you have a normal one. So already in the camera itself, you have a lot of ways to fit your style of shooting and your way of flying, which I think is great. And then on top, you can use the GyroFlow software to have even more options, because the settings you have there and the options you have here, there in the post stabilization are endless. But for the casual user, I have to say the internal rock steady stabilization is already so good. So we made huge steps forward in the rock steady technology. If I compare it with the first Osmo Action that I had back then, that I also put on FPV drones, and now looking at what rock steady is now, it's just crazy. It is so smooth right out of the camera, and the user doesn't have to do any post-processing anymore. You can basically directly share it and then have a great stabilization.
It's ideal for just, you know, quick content creation, just sharing footage with people on YouTube or whatever. Yeah. And not spending a lot of time, you know, in post-processing and grading if you don't want to.
Correct. Yeah.
And what about the different frame rates? Because the camera offers, you know, 100 frames per second, 60 frames per second, 50 frames per second. What mode do you tend to find yourself using most?
I usually like to shoot in, well, I'm in Europe, so I usually shoot in 4K 50. But there's one important pro tip. So at the end, maybe. So if people want to get the maximum out of the video transmission, they should shoot or set to 2.7K, 100 frames per second, because that will also make the video transmission then go and work with 100 frames per second. And that will also get the latency slightly shorter. So here's the tip at the end. So this is something, if you want to have the 4K resolution and 50 frames, I mean, still perfectly fine. I shot basically, I did the web clips on the website. I shot everything in, basically I flew for a long time only in 4K 50 mode, which 50 frames per second in the transmission, and it's already, to be honest, I did not feel a big difference to the original system, which worked with 100 frames, because you only had 1080p. So if you want to get the most out of the video transmission system, you can set it to 2.7K or to 1080p to get the 100 frames or 120 frames.
Yeah. Okay. So you tend to find that you shoot mostly 4K 50 with it.
Yes, if I want to, you know, content create with the camera, I shoot 4K 50, because I mean, the world is going towards 4K, and even if Instagram, you maybe don't need it, but on YouTube, most people have displays where you have higher resolutions, people watching their big TV sets. So you can crop, you can reframe, you have more options in the post stabilization. So I would definitely recommend shooting in 4K. If you really want to use the camera, the integrated camera. And it's amazing that you have an integrated 4K camera. So that's it.
Yeah, it is. To get that in, to get a camera of that quality in that size. I mean, I haven't done a side-by-side comparison with the Osmo Action, but I imagine they're very similar in terms of image quality. You know, which is crazy considering how much bigger that camera is.
Size. Considering the size and everything. It is.
We've talked about O3 supporting the V2 goggles, the FPV V2 goggles. Do you know if O3 is going to be made compatible with the DJI V1 goggles?
That I don't think so. So not 100% sure, but I never heard that this would be that this is going to happen. I think it was. I think the V2 goggles is the last product that will support the new new generation.
That makes sense. Sounds like there's a technical limitation there.
That pretty much is it. So I don't think it will be possible hardware wise.
Okay. Well, that's good to know anyway. Obviously helps people who are looking to upgrade and things like that. All right. Well, Ferdy, thank you so much for spending all this time talking me through the system. It was great to meet you. And
great meeting you as well.
Discussion.
really happy to have this chance. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and wish you the best of luck with your all your future pursuits and with testing those new DJI FPV products as well. Sounds like it's a pretty good job you got over there.
It is cool. Yeah, I won't complain. Okay, thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Cheers. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to support more work like this, I have a Patreon and a Buy Me a Coffee, and I've put links to both of those down in the video description. I'd really appreciate you checking them out and throwing a few dollars my way if you think I've earned it. I also want to let you know that I've recently updated my whole line of AOS frames to support the new O3 Air unit, and there are links to that down in the video description, as well as the AOS 5 O3 Bind and Fly that iFlight have just released. So if you don't want to build it yourself, you can buy an AOS 5 O3 built by iFlight with my tune on it, so you get the best performance straight out of the box. That's all I have for you for today. So until next time, I wish you all very, very happy flying.